Welcome to Focus on Liberia Roundtable Africa. Today I am sitting in the hot seat for my learned colleague Kelly, who is unavoidably absent. As usual, we know we discuss issues that are absolutely important and pertinent to the continent of Africa. Feel free, we welcome you all to fully participate on the program, make your positive contributions, and whatever feedback we'll be getting will help us to progress the program from one stage to another. And in today's edition, we have series of important events that have transacted over on the continent over the past few weeks. We have managed to select those that are very important and interesting for discussion that we can bring them to the light of the continent and for all our millions of listeners that are across the globe. In today's edition, the first story is Kenya's top court dismisses several petitions seeking to overturn the result of August 9 election. Then in the second one, we have mixed feeling mark 1 year since Guinea coup d'etat taken over by Mamadou Doumbouya. Then the third one, we have Malawi priest jail over murder of a man with albinism dies. Then Zambia secures $1.3 billion from IMF. What are the future ramifications of the loan on Zambians? Then finally, Liberia president give SKD, that is Samuel Kanyondo Stadium, to Sierra Leone free of cost for their international match. It is a gesture or a campaign? Okay, now we go back to our first story. We all know Kenya. Kenya is in the eastern part of Africa and one of the most developed continents, most developed country in Africa when it comes to African setup. But Kenyan political system can never be divorced from pandemonium, chaotic situation, maybe personal attack, tribalism. And this situation have emanated over the years since the like of Jomo Kenyatta. We saw Jomo Kenyatta, we saw Daniel Arap Moi. Then we are seeing the like of Uhuru Kenyatta. And all of these other people came and ruled Kenya. But unfortunately, Kenya, their setup in a time of political system is a bit difficult compared to some African countries. Never see we can relate it to existing political system into Africa. They run a presidential system where the president has absolute power. But we have another controversial politician into Kenya by the name of Raila Odinga. Raila Odinga has contested 5 consecutive elections into Kenya. He could not succeed to sit down on the golden throne of Kenya. And I think the highest position that he ever held into Kenya was to become the prime minister under the man whom he bitterly protested his winning of election in 2007. And in that, we saw him becoming a prime minister for them to form a government of national unity. As they normally say in politics, you have what? Permanent interest, but not permanent enemy. So Raila Odinga in the tune of launching, we saw him glooming together with a man whom he has bitterly opposed, crying down as a corrupt politician. He's not there to lead Kenya, allowing the Kenyatta family to just continue in the leadership of Kenya. We deteriorate the condition of Kenya, and we continue to impose tribalism in all the particular country. So what he normally did, he created a kind of union with him. And when he created union, President Uhuru Kenyatta came and fell out with his vice president, whom they call William Ruto. So Uhuru Kenyatta presented Raila Odinga as his own political party supporter, and at the same time cross carpet from leaving, even in fact he did not cross party, rather he left the party that brought him into power under the like of William Ruto, who they are widely considered to be somebody who was a peasant, and at the same time who has a kind of low life as any other Kenyan has, full of humility because he knows what a lot of Kenyans have gone through. He decided to support his main opposition leader. On the August 9 election, many people, by and large, we are thinking that just because Uhuru Kenyatta decided to support Raila Odinga, maybe the man could have finally taken over the throne of Kenya. Unfortunately, I don't think whether or throne, the presidential throne, is actually something that favored the Odinga family. We saw on August 9, 7 electoral commissioners into Kenya, maybe based on their constitution, based on what their politics was stated, and based on what the commissioners who protested, that in the panel of 7, or on the panel of 7, majority carries the vote. By the end of the day, we'll have the chief electoral commissioner who declares the vote. Chibukasa decided to declare the vote in favor of William Ruto instead of Uhuru Kenyatta. Instead of Raila Odinga. Raila Odinga protested this thing. He went with a case. We all know what happened in 2015 when he protested the case, and that particular election was being thoroughly investigated. And when they found out that he, Uhuru Kenyatta, did a lot of dubious, the election was not free and fair, it was being rigged, they have ballot shuffling. So they declared the election to be null and void, and they asked Raila Odinga to go on the poll against with Uhuru Kenyatta. He declared. Now, in this case, Ruto had won. William Ruto has won the election. The faction that Uhuru Kenyatta supported, declared, he still lost the election. That tells you that the president lost popularity. He was widely accused to be corrupt. But William Ruto cannot also be deleted in the name of corruption, embezzlement, because a lot of people are accused. In fact, he had a case that was overturned in the ICC, that is the International Criminal Court of Justice in The Hague. Unfortunately for the Kenyans, such a case like that cannot be prosecuted now, because the chief justice, the chief justice for the prosecutor, or the head of the ICC now, is the same person who was the lawyer for William Ruto in the case that was being overturned because of election violence that happened way back in 2007. So now he cannot be prosecuted because it's like lacking credibility into the international body, especially the ICC court. Uhuru Odinga definitely has won he has refused. He refused to concede the election. That was why he took the case to court. Now the top court in Kenya, we are the Supreme Court, everything comes to an end. They're saying that the election was free and fair. They admitted that there might have been some rigging into the election. But those petitions, the rigging, the fraudulent act that happened, we are not enough to invalidate the election. We all know what happens in the African election, irrespective of how Kenya it is compared to other countries. That doesn't dispute the fact that Kenya is not a poor country. And we know when will they organize another election, we talk about fundings. We're talking about security. And in the election, there are 3 things that are involved: the before, after, or before, during, and after. Before is when they are campaigning. That is the before election. When they are campaigning, we have a lot of chaotic situations that happen. If you do not take time, politicians are being attacked, villages are burned, people lost their life, property, and whatsoever thing. The during is the election day. A lot of chaotic situation happen. And the after is a system that we are witnessing today now. After the pronouncement of the election result, and we may see the repercussion. I can congratulate Raila Odinga, maybe for not ordering his supporters to come on the street, like Isumi others, to come and demonstrate, burn down government properties. Instead, he decided to go to court. The court did not favor him this time around. And now they have declared William Ruto to be the president-elect. And Raila Odinga, need to concede defeat. I think Raila Odinga is not actually well placed to lead the Kenyans, because he has managed to get some part of the Kikuis with him to vote, and still yet they decided to neglect him. And in this case, he cannot even call for a general pandemonium or protest or demonstration into Kenya, because you have some Kikuis who supported him, and he supported William Ruto. And maybe his VP could be a Kikuyu, so how can he call for demonstration against their own brother? So I'm afraid. And because I'm saying that because the vice president of William Ruto is also a Kikuyu. Then this man, Daniel Arap Moi, who was Kenya's second president, is a tribe where William Ruto came from. So they are well placed, well organized. I think it is high time the Kenyan people leave the election. because of the petition whatsoever thing. And now we are seeing even in Angola, UNITA is petitioning the election result that the UNTA won into Angola. Maybe they have taken the case to court, but peculiar things that happen into Kenya have never happened into Angola. We are yet to see. So far, so good. This is an important issue. We all should understand and accept the fact that William Ruto has won the election. Raila Odinga took the case to court. Odinga was defeated into court because the judges ruled that the petition being tabled into court, we are not enough. Those election rigging that took place, the fraudulent act that happened, we are not enough to invalidate the entire presidential result. Meaning, they cannot afford to create another liability on the capitals of Kenya in the name of overturning that particular election. So now the man just have to settle. I think maybe if you ask me, this is the end of road of Raila Odinga in Kenya political system. And I am afraid this man, 5 consecutive times he has been contesting for election. If you allow him to be elected into as a president of Kenya, maybe he could become a dictator. He could have understood that, okay, he could be like a good political godfather, an advisor, instead of still wanting to head the Kenyan system, because he has been rejected at the polls for 5 consecutive times. So maybe, just maybe, the Orange Democratic Party can start to rethink and select a vibrant person with new mentality, maybe who is disconnected with the mentality, the ideologies, and somehow philosophies of Kenya, because of Raila Odinga. He has fantasized the system, he has idealized everything, but his philosophies did not help him to win the election of Kenya. So far, so good. These are some of the important things that we have. So we go next to our next story. Mixed feeling mark 1 year since Guinea coup. In Guinea, Doumbouya actually now spent 1 year in office, and today is the 10th of today is the 9th of today the 7th of July, of September, meaning today he's 1 year 2 days in office. He took over the governance of Guinea on September 5th, 2021. Well, mixed feeling. It is just like when Christ was about to be persecuted, when Christ came first into Jerusalem. They said, Hosanna, Hosanna, he who comes in the name. They thought that Christ was an earthly king based on religious purpose, based on the Bible. When it turned out that I'm not here to rule the world, my kingdom is in heaven, those who started to shout, sing for him, still we are the same people that asked, that started saying, prosecute him, kill him, kill him. This is exactly what is happening today in Guinea. We all know when Doumbouya took over, Guinea was on the time bomb. Everybody needed Alpha Conde to go. They accused him of corruption, they accused him of embezzlement, tribalism, nepotism, favoritism, sectionalism. In fact, all of those things we are just running. And honestly speaking, he mortgaged Guinea, embezzled their system, and crippled the great democracy that he came to secure. Alpha Conde, to lay a very strong foundation here, is a profession. A professor, everybody thought that Guinea may have been or might have been ruled with some people who are not well educated, and they believe into their military tendency, since their background was a kind of things that, in fact, their languages or wordings were full of militant, because their background was from a military setup. So when they have somebody who was well disciplined in terms of educational aspects, then who knows the law and who have suffered for quite a long time under the humiliation, under threat, he was operating on an atmosphere that was full of threat and fear. So when they saw this man coming into power in 2010, everybody started clapping hands that it is better that we have a man like this. Unfortunately for Alpha Conde, he mismanaged the system, he abused the trust of the people, and he did everything that he could that make the Guinean system to be a kind of boring thing. And people started saying Alpha Conde could be like a mistake. Some of the sympathizers of Lansana Conte, who died in office, we saw Musa Daddy's Camara taking over. Daddy's Camara was brutally overthrown. The international community involved him. There's other people came in. So this man, election was contested, organized and contested. He won the election. People were saying that a savior has come into Guinea. Little knowing that the man in himself is not a Democrat. It was like a wolf in the skin of sheep. He displays his pattern of leadership. He proved so ineffective, so corrupt, and he wanted to create a dynasty that will allow another Mandinka to succeed. Although a Mandinka succeeded him, but it was not on his legal basis. When he realized, after committed constitutional coup, this was something that normally condemn our traditional bodies into Africa. He's speaking of ECOWAS, speaking of AU, and other international bodies, even the so-called UN and and the EU that not EU but Commonwealth program and other institutional bodies that we have. These are people who sit down when they allow things to go worse, they will come out to condemn. Alpha Conde committed constitutional coup in 2020 by forcing a referendum on Guineans. When people violated it, even though Ebola was COVID-19 was at a peak into Guinea by then, he allowed imported people. That was why just after the election, we saw a lot of Guineans dying, and at the same time we saw COVID-19 coming up thoroughly, and those issues escalated into Liberia and also in Guinea, in Sierra Leone, and even affected Ivory Coast. Then this man, after committing that constitutional coup, he realized that even the military, he never have an absolute power over the military. Anybody could have happened. And Guinea is one of the few lawless countries. I actually grew up in Guinea. Most of the time, you see a lot of people into uniform into Guinea who are not legally employed by the government. Maybe if you're an army officer, you can easily employ another person. And because Guinea is full of a militarized system, Guinea run like a police state. Guinea is not a kind of state where we have legal law system. If you're a military over there, it's like you're on the hem of affairs, you can do everything you can. So that is why even any regime that come into Guinea, if you definitely fall with the military, the possibility of you staying into power will definitely be questionable. And if you cannot succeed to create a faction that will sympathize with your ideology, at any time you can be kicked out of power, or even those military guys can kill you, because a lot of people have withstand coup d'etat into Guinea, killing because of malicious damage. We've seen that even while he was in power, still as Alpha Conde in power, we saw a general kill in Kankan, another one in Kenya from the army barracks. So he started losing grip over this military. What he did, he lied himself with France. He came with somebody who thought that would have saved him, Doumbouya. Mamadi Doumbouya is another Mandinka. But he has taken a long time in places like Afghanistan. He went in Syria. He did some training in America. And he also had a kind of vast military background in France. So he was serving India. And he has his own wife as a French citizen. So being somebody with peculiar qualities like that, and being a well-disciplined army, he thought that then let me come with Doumbouya. Doumbouya would be the man that will guide me. He created a special force, a kind of anti-terrorist unit, well-trained, well-equipped, with all modern equipment. He came with them, and these were carefully selected, deliberate soldiers who were inculcated with the plan of destruction. If anything happened, go there and ensure that you silence the people at all costs. These were their mandates. And that was the faction that he created. The young man saw himself so powerful that he can now wallow within the powers given to him in the confinement of Guinea. And by giving him such power, and the president even said, my life and the continuity of my presidential position depends on your abilities and how you are going to remain loyal to me. Without you, I can be nowhere. The continuity of my regime, my safety and whatsoever thing is in your hand. So have you seen? So the man realized how vulnerable Conde was. So what he did, he organized a kind of careful coup where lives and property may not be lost at a higher scale. Although some people lost their life, those who remain somehow loyal to Mr. President during the time he attacked on September the 5th during the morning hours. Doumbouya took over the governance of Guinea. But people were bored, people were exhausted. People cried down Alpha Conde because of a dictatorial regime, and he wanted to create a kind of aristocrat society or a kind of merely a society who believe in elitism. We are only the few people we have to survive, those who are connected. So Guinea was like a class society. So when Doumbouya attacked him, took him down, arrested him, and gave series of speech promising people. But this is military, and this is what they normally they do. The system that they cry down, they tend to do whatsoever thing worse than that particular system. So people started clapping hands for him. They did everything that they could to ensure that Doumbouya could be supported. In fact, like Silun Diallo really said that it wasn't a coup, rather it was an enforcement of democracy and forcing Alpha Conde to what? Or help democracy. And people said it was enforcement of the constitution. So everybody, the civil society, opposition leaders, religious leaders, the military and the police, everybody was just jubilating on the street 1 year back. It is very unfortunate that this man has negated on almost all the promises that he made to Guinea. He has become well corrupt, well placed, and a socially class person with military. Now, instead of saying let contest election, in the first place, he has delayed showing the date of election over 3 or 4 times. And now he said over in the space of 36 months, maybe we all know how 30 months now towards the date that is set. There are mixed feelings into Guinea. Now he has declared law into Guinea. It's a decree. One thing about military, when they take over, that is why they normally tell you that the worst civilian government is the best military regime. Now nobody's allowed to demonstrate or protest into Guinea. Anybody who will demonstrate or protest into Guinea will definitely be served a warrant, or you can be killed. In fact, it is like going against the mandate of the military. So have you seen? He's now it's an attack on democracy. He has crippled the media, almost crippled everything. So this mixed feelings happen. Some people who did not lose their political powers, like the Mandinkas, who still feel somehow affiliated, very close to the power, may praise him. But if you go to the Fulanis, they will condemn him. If you go to certain deprived community, they will condemn him. And now everybody's just grumbling about the so-called leadership of Doumbouya. Doumbouya is a failed system. And he's now encouraging Russia, eliminating the relationship with France, and also eliminating a relationship with America. Of course, Guinea have one of the largest foreign reserves. Don't be surprised if you see another coup d'etat happening into Guinea anytime when it is possible. And he does not even trust the military again. So what he also intends to do is to create, maybe if not empower, the anti-terrorist unit that was created, and so that they can have absolute grip on power into Guinea. So far, so good. These are some of the things that are in Guinea, and sanctions have been lifted. He's a bit thinking that he can do anything he wants. Because if they continue to place sanctions on Guinea, what benefit will it have on Doumbouya? Nothing. He almost has everything in his own confinement. But it is those lay Guineans, the common Guineans, who are going to suffer from the sanctions that ECOWAS, AU, UN, or other international bodies may place on Guinea. Although Doumbouya may suffer as an individual, but it has limited consequences on him because he has the power, he has the financial resources, and everything. Finally, we come to our third story. We go to Malawi. Malawi pressed jail over murder of a man with albinism dies. We all know this. That is why sometimes I question certain religions or religious people. They use religion as an excuse to inflict damage, pain, harm, and other things. This Africa, this is the only area where you will witness somebody, a wife may tend to obey more her pastor in church rather than the spouse or the husband. They may tend to sacrifice whatsoever effort that they have into church. Unfortunately, our churches are not living up to expectation. And it's also related to cultural practices, our tradition. In Liberia, Sierra Leone, Guinea, sometimes Ivory Coast, and maybe in West Africa, people with albinism are not designated as targets. Unfortunately, in East and Central Africa, people with albinism are people they normally target because of ritual acts. They use these people like in time of campaign. It related also to politicians. They think that when you have the blood, a certain part of albinos, It gives you special magical power that moves you to even talk before people and they should listen to you. You can do everything you can. So unfortunately, in central and eastern part of Africa, people who suffer from albinism are normally designated target for religious or people or religious leaders, herbalists, and whatsoever thing. And albinism is just like a genetic disorder. It is not a cause. And people like that should not be used. This is what come with our human rights institutions. And I think most of the East, South, and Central Africa, I'm not talking too much Central Africa, yes, but the East and the South, so they have some well-developed advanced country, and we are expecting people should be okay with sophisticated mentality. At least this type of thinking is a bit moribund. It shouldn't be encouraged. This thing should not be pampered. It's archaic. And these are some of the things these are some of the cultural aspect of Africa that is really destroying our societal setting instead of making it up. For goodness sake, and for crying out loud, an albino also has the right to live. Just because you're an albino doesn't mean that you should be a designated target for people who have ritual aspect. Politicians, unfortunately, why things like that cannot be devolved, they cannot stop into the east and central part of Africa, because these so-called politicians whom they expect to enact law into parliament, they are the same people asking the commoners to bring albinos for them so that they can stay themselves into power. Why have we been fooled into Africa? This is a strange mentality, and it has destroyed the African political setup. It has destroyed our societal setting. Now, the priest died in jail just because he facilitated the killing of a man with of albinism. And if you trace that, where would they tell you? Either it's because for them to get religious power, to get political power, to become overreach knights. And politicians will never enact stringent law against such practice because they themselves believe into the odd act. They're benefiting from this nefarious act committed by religious leaders. And people are very poor. They said the three greatest enemies of mankind are poverty, illiteracy, and ignorance. And if you can be literate, you can fight against poverty and ignorance. But unfortunately, the best educated people in Africa are sometimes the people who are living in abject poverty. So that is why in Africa, people normally think that what is the meaning of higher education? If less educated politicians are in our chambers, mismanaging our affairs, embezzling our money, you may see somebody who's less educated, who cannot adequately advocate for himself. He's advocating on behalf of government or constituencies, and what he does is to ensure that he manipulates things. So this is a kind of condemnable, and I think and I feel that Malawians, Burundians, Tanzanians, Kenyans, and others who where this practice is normally found, it is high time people understand that an albino should not be a designated target for any religious aspect. Even in Tanzania, they have what somebody call, they have what an MP who is representing them in parliament. And it is very sad that in Tanzania, albinos, or in those Central African countries and Eastern African countries, it's not like in Liberia and Guinea, where you can even meet an albino in the middle of market. But if you make an attempt in places like Burundi, Tanzania, other places, you'll be kidnapped. You may not even know who will come and take you away because they see you as a designated target where they can get money. And politicians are responsible for this aspect. So this is definitely not good, and it is high time that mentality should be condemned. We need a religious and cultural renaissance into Africa. We need a traditional renaissance into Africa, and we need to forget about certain aspects. This is why sometimes when they condemn the ATR, and certain aspect of the ATRs may not be commensurable. But this is witchcraft. Can you say ATR is part of it? No, it's not witchcraft. An act of witchcraft should not be compared to ATR. But those who may have little or no knowledge about ATR, they may consider it to be ATR. No, it's just witchcraft. It's wickedness. And I think it is high time Central Africa should take cognizance of this. We go to our next story. Okay, Zambia secures $1.3 billion loan from IMF, that is the International Monetary Fund. What are the future ramifications of the loan on Zambia. I was reading about this thing extensively last night. In fact, almost every price into Zambia now is now escalating. IMF, they do not get anything for free. I do agree the fact that it is going to lessen some of the financial burden into Zambia. Maybe they will open aspect sometime, give loans to business entities, what re-energize the dilapidating economy, because the copper bed is no longer doing better. And I think they can do better with this money also if they can diversify their economic system, like not just relying on the copper. But we have almost always seen this. IMS may come with their own measures, and they normally put it in austerity. So if you are now buying fuel, they will ask the government, no, do not subsidize it. And wages will not increase for those who are working. But we're expecting practically for almost each and every goods into Malawi to be increased. Into Zambia to be increased. And you watch at Egalugu was a very corrupt man. Well, Ichilema may be doing good, but he met a practically damaged economy, the one that was crippled because of Egalugu corrupt practice. His wife was being corrupt. A few times ago, I don't know, was his wife, fiancé, was caught with bags of dollars under her bed. And the president himself only ruled for one term. I think the Zambians were calculative. They knew exactly what they were doing, and they were very practical in taking their decisions. And what they decided to do was to just sack him after his first time in office. Because he was not doing anything good. He made the police to be brutal. He underdeveloped the educational system. He could not do any better investment into the trade. And maybe we could still blame the COVID-19 damage that took place in the Zambia, but was it the only country that COVID-19 took a toll on, and how Africa was deeply affected? Maybe because of course, I can understand most of our industries became crippled because it was very difficult for you to do international transaction, especially when land and air borders, including waters, we have been locked to ensure that to curtail the spread. But he could not do anything better. But mind you, this was same Ichilema some time ago. He decided to take salary for 9 months, and some of his ministers opted to do it. All was as a means to mitigate what the continuous crippling of his economy, just to stop it from spreading. Now, because IMF have actually said, with all his policies being put in place, with where it took the economy of Zambia from Igalugu, I think he has made an important match, and that particular mark been matched with what he took from. In fact, according to Ichilema, he said he virtually met the Zambian coffer empty. I don't know how possible was that, because I believe that each country should have what they call their national reserve, which can either be placed or kept in US, and those things should not be touched except otherwise. But the man said he met everything virtually empty. And we have seen a lot of ministers have also lost their jobs. Some have been sacked, and others. But yet big fish are to be arrested. And ironically, some of these ministers are even the ones that are currently serving. So if his allegations, as wide or elaborate they are, we have to be very practical. I am expecting most of his former presidents, the former president ministers, to be arrested. But things like that did not actually happen. Now, IMF loan is in. Let's see the ramification, the consequences on the life of common Zambians. Those who are employed, will they use IMF money to increase their salary? I doubt it, no. They are saying they are going to involve into developmental project. It's a fantastic idea, laudable, the one that has been idealized. I wish it is practicalized. We need an empirical policy into Africa. Now, those things are going to no salary increment. I don't think it's going to happen. Then, secondly, expect the basic commodities are definitely going to increase because Papa government want to pay back IMF money. They cannot use that money to subsidize, rather to come with development, and you're going to pay for all the development. But if the layman is not getting anything elsewhere, then our politicians are very corrupt. How sure are the Zambians that each layman is going to utilize that money effectively and efficiently for the development of Zambia? Maybe they have IMF. Maybe IMF again, when they come, what they normally do, they send what they normally do when they come into things like that, they will release some of their partners to be monitoring this system, and you pay this expert money going for free. I am not against the loan. It's a laudable idea. It will help Zambia, but they should use it consciously, and they must use it in such a way that it should benefit the Zambians. Infrastructure should be built and a system should be put in place to effectively and efficiently monitor the spending of that particular money. But now, the ramification on the Zambians is very dire because almost everything has now gone on the increase because IMF money has arrived. To the layman, he was thinking that we have $1.3 billion. Rice is going to be sold at $20, $30. No, the government is not going to do that. They're going to put more tax on the rice importation because those profit that they are making, they want to use it to pay IMF money. IMF money come with their own measures. They tell you their own financial policies, and they are forced to abide by them. If they had not signed and agreed to the financial policy, the terms of IMF, that loan wouldn't have been given. Because that is what normally they do. They force a country to agree to their own term. They tell you what to do. So don't be surprised if public cry, condemnation, because the layman have a very different mentality about IMF money. They thought that money could be distributed to different MDAs and they can use it to soften the dire living condition of the Zambia. Instead, it is going to increase, and they will tell you that they are building infrastructures, maybe making rules, forming commissions to do this, to do that. All those things are not going to help. But if only they can use it for the purpose in which they took the money for, and they can limit less expert coming. Let those money not be given entirely to expert again in time of their salary. IMF is a very cunning body, and one should be very careful. So that is where we leave that Central Africa Republic story. We go to our last story. Now, we all know in our last story, we see Liberia president gives SK, that is Samuel Kayando Stadium, to Sierra Leone free of cost to play their international matches. Was it a gesture or a political campaign? It depends on which school of thought that you are coming from and how fair that you are with the Liberian Football Association, and what power does the president have in deciding. We all know LFA, that is the Liberian Football Association, should be devolved of politics. No politician should have control over it. That's a fantastic, unarguable, it's laid down principle, and it applies to any other country. Nevertheless, Mr. President still has control over the body when it comes to taking certain decisions that may positively affect that particular body. Sierra Leone now do not have a stadium because it is under construction. FIFA has condemned the stadium and said it is not safe for any international match or even national match to be played on it. So now the pitch is under construction. Of course, some time ago they pay in Guinea, and Liberia once pay in Ghana. But now when it comes down to Liberia with Sierra Leone, George Opon said, Mr. President said it should be done free of cost. Some people are condemning it. I read certain posts. Does the president have the right It should be like LFA. Yes, that you are perfectly right. But we all know when it comes to certain things, certain decisions that affects Liberia's football, either international or local, is somehow connected with body. You have the Minister of Sport also in Liberia. It means there's some political connection. Nevertheless, the Minister of Sport does not involve in direct administration of the Liberian football. Never, but he still has some control to ensure that things are done right. President has that absolute power. It's a gesture. We shouldn't politicize everything that certain people do. It is in the political power, in the constitutional power, the power of veto, for Mr. President to grant pardon to any criminal, even if he kill. We agree with that. He can grant him pardon. It have him. He have that power. Similarly, he has the right to take decisions. You can even compare Sierra Leone to Guinea, to England, or you compare Liberia to England. When you see the powers of the British Prime Minister and the Queen, there are certain things that are only allocated to them. They are a symbol of honor. We should respect some of their decisions. Liberia and Sierra Leone are interwoven countries. And I think before this time, there was damaged policies, international foreign bodies, before foreign policy between Liberia and Sierra Leone. We all can remember the Kuriamba case and whatsoever thing. How Sierra Leone may have been one or two accused of being responsible for the attempted coup on President Samuel Kayando. And we all realize what Jastillo did to create harm on Sierra Leoneans. And we have seen our foreign policy between these countries to damage. It is wrong for Mr. President to try to patch up things with Sierra Leone. Now we have seen a relatively young man into Sierra Leone, a relatively young man into Liberia coming together. I think for nations to develop, there should be cohesiveness. There should be good political setup. And there should be friendly policies. Yes, he said the stadium should be free. And nobody should pay. Somebody compare what they paid into Ghana. But even Ghana, the body was lacing. That money was reduced. Ghana is far, far away from Liberia. That money was reduced compared to what Sierra Leone is with Liberia. And there was still money gained. Still money was gained. For goodness sake, they use hotels. Did they tell you that the hotels were free? Of course, no. They ate. And they did all sorts of things into Liberia. But there was the impact, the spirit. It created, we all know football is peace. Football brings love. Football brings uniformity. It brings transformation. And it allows country to see themselves as one. You see people professing their unionism, their patriotism for football, irrespective of the political device that we have, irrespective of the different school of thought, different political mentality. But when it comes to your national team playing against a particular team, you see people from different political backgrounds, they come all together to support a political party. I don't see this as any political campaign. I don't think Mr. President violated any clause into the Constitution. And you did not even see FIFA condemning him. It is his absolute power. That's what makes him president. He has the right to take decision on behalf of Liberia. And if he has anything to do in that if he has anything to do in that negated or maybe violated the clause of LFA, people can call him. And this guy has been the footballer. He knows exactly what goes on. So please, it is high time we Liberians stop politicizing things that are not meant to be politicized. We should not try to revolutionize things. Certain things should not be revolutionized. Certain things should not be radicalized. We need to be depoliticize certain things that we do. We need to de-radicalize certain things that we also do. It was a spectacular gesture, well spotted art, well celebrated, and things that deserve an applaud for Mr. President, not condemnation. We should understand that Liberia and Sierra Leone have suffered greatly. And because of the cause of civil war, Koyamba case whatsoever thing, some amount of trust was being lost. If you have a young president, he has his own lapses as an individual, as a leader. But that particular decision was prudent, it was well spotted, well established, well constructed, well taken, and it shouldn't be condemned. I normally tell people that it is better to be roughly right than to be precisely wrong. I think Mr. President is roughly right. Maybe roughly right in essence, maybe he did not consult everybody that he should have consulted. But who knows? Just a single phone call, even a WhatsApp message, you don't know. So people should stop these things. Liberians should start thinking outside the box. Condemn what needs to be condemned. You cannot start. Why are you giving a dog bag name to hang it? Not everything that you should politicize. And just because you do not want him as president doesn't mean that he cannot perform his function. There is a saying that just because you know the truth and you do not accept it, that doesn't corrupt the truth. Mr. President may be bad in all that way, but he has that absolute power. And what he did is a gesture, is a means to what? To solidify the good relationship between Liberia and Sierra Leone, to heal the bond, the burdens or what the grudges that have been between these two countries because of what happened in the 10-year civil war, in the Kuyamba days and whatsoever thing. So let's accept the fact and give an accolade to Mr. President where he deserves it. Stop giving a dog a bad name to hang it. Not everything needs to be politicized. Mr. President did not politicize the system. Rather, in fact, Liberia, do you agree with the fact that Liberia also invests, the government of Liberia also invests money into LFA? They do. They give money there. And they ensure certain facilities happen. So he knows what he did. It was a prudent decision, a well-spotted act, things that deserve commendation, not condemnation. And I think other countries can also take up such gesture. Why do you think Ghana reduced their own? If Liberia decides, say, it's free of cost, let it be so. Praise Mr. President whenever he deserves praise. Condemn me whenever he deserves condemnation. And be very honest with yourself and honest with the world and set brighter example. So I think these are the most important issues today. I thank almost everyone that took their time to listen and maybe make positive contribution on this program. We hope to be back on Wednesday next week to come with another news or fresh stories that may develop into Africa. And we should also understand that your country is your country. Patriotism is what we are expecting. Loyalty is what we are expecting. Political party comes, political party goes. Government comes, government goes. But the state remain on its own. And you should be Liberians, not Seditians, not any other political party supporter at the detriment of your own country. So be it in your opposition, be it in governance, that doesn't deny the fact that Mr. A or B is not a Liberian. So Liberia first, all our things should come next. And praise your president for such gesture. And if you come here, if you come into Sierra Leone or go into any other country, I think that particular thing Mr. President has done will go down into memory lane. It is not going to go there as any corrupt act. It is not going to go there as any violation act. It is going to go there as a positive contribution, a peculiar example, maybe be said. Let us accept that it is a peculiarity and stop condemning him. Thank you very much for listening. And I thank also the board of Focus on Liberia. I am the co-host of this ROTA program and also their West Africa correspondent. I hope to join you next week. Thank you.